Sì? Ok. Shall we... Si sente? Shall we start? Hi, because we are already slightly late. Shall we start? Hello, hi. Ok. Mi sta che lo uso così perché è meglio. Ok, so we're just about to begin. Thank you. Okay. Good morning, everybody. So welcome to this UNA talk. Really glad to be here all together. Yesterday, we celebrated the great value of European alliances and for us all of Europa and its role in transforming our institutions and integrating our communities. So yesterday, also thought to the great experts we had the pleasure to have with us, we celebrated the first 5 years of our joint engagement and commitment to Europa. It was very interesting and extremely enriching as an experience. Today, we are taking a slightly different perspective, more on a sort of global scale, and we're going to reflect on competition and integration. So let me just dwell very briefly on what we would like to do together today, and thanks again for being with us. So integration of expertise, fostering of exchanges, sharing of resources are no doubt among the main goals universities aim at, also through international relations. However, integration can also be questioned when critical conditions arise, and this seems to be the case in current times, as the rector and the rectors already stressed also yesterday. We cannot deny that in current times, universities are facing, actually in a number of areas in the world, and unfortunately Europe being one of them, we're facing challenges related to a number of different issues. So, for instance, limited financial resources and even more so reductions of financial resources, and this was already recalled quite a few times yesterday and also, I guess, this morning. We're witnessing conflicts, severe conflicts in a range of areas in the world or conditions of political instability. We're also witnessing very relevant demographic changes, and that for sure is going to impact Europe in a really severe way. And then again, climate change, energy crisis, migration, health-related issues. So these elements obviously are not due to universities themselves, but universities do act in very precise political, social, economic contexts. So we are affected by all these elements. So in such a scenario, we would like to reflect jointly on the relation between integration and competition in the academic context. And we're going to do so thanks to the expertise and experiences of our prominent guests. And let me very deeply thank Professor Anfo and Dr. Venturi. We already had the opportunity to exchange views on this, and they're really very, very thankful and grateful for the presence here today. So we want to integrate our communities, but we are also competitors. We are competitors as universities, for instance, with respect to financial resources, grants, calls, and also we are likely to compete, at least partly, with respect to student enrollment in the next few decades. So before leaving the floor to our prominent guests, let me just very quickly introduce them. And again, thank you so much for being with us. So Professor Nana Abba Pianfo is Vice Chancellor of the University of Ghana, and as a woman, I'm also very happy to stress the first female Vice Chancellor in the University of Ghana. And she's a professor of linguistics with over 22 years of experience in higher education. As Vice Chancellor, she is emphasizing integrating technology into university operations while keeping people central. And this is something we are very much on the same floor with her. Among other things, she launched a 7 million digitalization program in order to improve the experience for students, faculty, and staff, so with a very strong stress on the importance of innovation in these days for academic context. On the other side, let me very briefly introduce Dr. Pietro Venturi. He's an agronomist as a background with a PhD in agricultural engineering, actually from the University of Bologna, so we're really glad to have him back in a different capacity. He has worked throughout his career on bioeconomy and sustainability. In the European Commission, he served as the EU Science Counselor to Latin American and the African Union, and has been promoting research initiatives under Horizon Europe. He's currently leading the Clean Hydrogen Mission, driving global sustainable hydrogen strategies and supporting climate policies, and among others, he just came back from COP29 in Baku. So, without no further ado, let me just start with suggesting some topics for reflection addressing Professor Anfo. So, Dana, what do you reckon are the most significant features of the global scenario which are currently impacting academic communities? And to what extent do you think are such elements as, for instance, different distribution of resources, different demographic trends, going to impact international relations between university settings? And I'll leave the floor to you.
Thank you very much, Rafaela. Good morning to you all, and I'd like to thank Europa for this invitation to be part of this assembly and also to serve on the External Advisory Board. Rafaela, I think that you set the context quite appropriately. Universities exist in societies. And so it's therefore not insulated from the challenges or the successes of societies. We have experienced conflict situations around the world on almost every continent. And in some cases, we have seen full blown out wars. Talk about Ukraine, Russia, Israel, Palestine, and so on. But the other places too, that there are still conflicts. We may not have gotten to those levels, parts of Africa, jihadist movements, and so on. So there's been a certain level of instability all around, and definitely that has effect on universities. I was in Tokyo and listened to an Afghan, student who talked about the restrictions on female students there with regard to access to education. So conflict situations, issues of instability definitely affect universities the way that we expect to run. There are also been issues of global concern, such as health, pandemics, communicable and incommunicable diseases, climate change. You're coming from COP29, energy crisis, etc. All of these have an impact on universities, even with regard to the things that we focus on collectively or individually as institutions. They determine the direction that we go, and then also the training that we offer our students. And I would like to be, maybe before that, let me talk about technological advancement. There's a rapid pace of technological change, and it requires universities to constantly update themselves, not just the curricula, but also the infrastructure and then training for our faculty and staff, and not to talk about the investment that goes into this. But I would also like to be a bit provocative here and say that we have seen the rise of right-winged nationalist movements around the world. We've seen it in Europe, we've seen it in North America, and so on. And these do affect universities. Nationalist movements often promote anti-migration and xenophobic sentiments, leading to a more hostile environment for international and minority students. And this affects diversity and inclusivity efforts. And these are fundamental values for universities across the world. We also have issues of, free speech principles of free speech, leading to tensions. We saw that in North America, and it spurs debates about the extent of academic freedom and censorship, and the balance between free expression and creating a respectful environment on campus. But also this has effect on funding and support. Nationalist policies may influence funding for research and academic programs, and particularly in the social sciences and humanities, where there's critical examination may be viewed unfavorably. Yes, we all do appreciate that we need STEM, science, technology, engineering, and so on to make progress as societies, as communities. But we also need that humanist approach, the social science approach, to be embedded in these. And so overall, we see that these are factors that affect universities. But what is the impact? You asked about the impact on internationalization or international relations. Well, I mean, whatever impact universities, impact international relations. Universities are set up as communal communities, and communal not just in their local context, but also globally. We are here at Bologna. We talk about it being the first university, and students came from various regions to come together. And by the way, just to sidetrack a little bit, I hope that we are aware that it's been attested by UNESCO that the first university was in Morocco, founded by a woman, and that has been attested by UNESCO and also the Guinness Book of Records. And all of these universities that came later on, Bologna, Oxford, they were built on those principles, you know, of academic freedom, diversity, inclusion, and so on. So all of these that affect universities, they impact on the international relations. Funding and financial sustainability is very easily one of them. And many universities around the world are grappling with cuts in budgets and so on. When that happens, it's very easy to cut the budget for internationalization, to put reduced numbers on mobility, staff and faculty mobility, and so on. And these also invariably feed into lack of vibrant research collaboration. So I will stop here and hope the conversation continues.
So thank you very much. Piero, let's take advantage of your non-academic expertise here. So how is the feeling in Brussels in this very complicated geopolitical situation, also with respect to the new commission and also with respect to the new US administration that in the next few months will enter into force? I think that most of us have heard comments about colleagues in the US who are slightly worried about what is going to happen there. So what is the impact that this could have on education and research, especially worldwide, and how could this be reflected also on budget opportunities for universities?
Thanks for your question, Raffaella. First of all, I also would like to thank for this kind invitation Europa and University of Bologna. It's very nice to be back here. And well, in Brussels, how is the situation? Well, as you can imagine, well, this is a quite hectic period. Yesterday evening, coming back home from our dinner, I received the farewell email from Ursula von der Leyen because her first commission was ending. And I'm sure that on Monday morning I will receive her welcome email for the new commission that is going to start. So, well, we are working, we are busy. Let's see what is happening because, as you say, the geopolitical situation worldwide is getting more and more complicated. But well, coming back to what we have done in Brussels in this month, well, we receive 3 interesting reports. 2 from 2 former Italian prime ministers, Letta and Monti, and another one from Professor Aitor, that is a former former RNI Minister of Portugal. So first we receive the inputs of Letta, and his main point for what concern research innovation is that is suggesting to add the fifth freedom to the existing four in the single market. As you know, we have freedom of moving goods, services, people, and capital. And Letta also suggested to have the fifth freedom focusing on research, innovation, data, competences, knowledge, and education. Well, then the Letta report has been followed by the Draghi one that had a relevant impact, and he made it clear that we really need to increase our productivity, our competitiveness in Europe. Specifically identified three areas where we have to improve. We need to close, for example, the innovation gap with what we consider the natural competitors, but in some way they can be also allies. So just to give you an example, in the world there are 1,200 unicorns. You know what is a unicorn? Is a company that a value more than 1 billion. Half of them are United States. In China we have around 160 unicorns, and in Europe we are in a similar situation. In Italy we have 3. So we need to get more competitive. Just to give you another data, we it's already 20 years in the Commission that we say in Europe we aim to have 3% of the GDP allocated to research. Okay, this is our target. It will be, I'm joking, it will be forever. But well, in US they are 3.4%, we are 2.3%, and in China they are already 2.4%. So, I mean, we are really to get there, to work there, and to improve. Another point that Letta rise is concerning, well, here I am, is concerning, the need to decarbonize and to have competitive plans for this. So we need to bring down our energy price while continuing our greening work. And then another point that is important and is also increase our security and reduce dependencies. Well, Draghi report is around 400 pages, and I really trust that all of you have been reading it and you know by heart. But well, I see some skeptical faces around. But well, I want to highlight 3 points of this report. The first one is the need to scale up the budget and take special attention to the activities of the European Research Council. The second one, I'm sure it's quite conflictual in the Commission, is the setting up of EU chairs to be allocated to well-known European scientists. So this means that scientists will make the European policy on RNI. This is quite interesting view. And the third point that has also been mentioned yesterday is to give special relevance at the European University Alliances. And well, obviously another point that must be taken into account is also the need to have more skyrocket science with where we have a high risk, high reward, and something similar to the American DARPA that is always mentioned in this analysis. Then we have Professor Aitor that mentioned that he would like to have to double the budget compared to what we have now with Horizon Europe. Well, he would like to set up 4 main spheres of work. Let's say that 3 of them are very similar to the pillars we have now in Horizon Europe. So one dealing with excellence of science, the other one with challenges, and the other one with innovation. It's interesting that is mentioning also to set up another pillar on social sciences. And so what is happening? We have also to take into account another document that is not very popular, but inside the Commission is very important, and are the guidelines that President von der Leyen sent to her commissioners. So basically, we are going to have, where we had just one commissioner, that was Gabriel, at the beginning, and we will have two different portfolio, one focused on research and innovation, that will be managed by Maria Zarayeva, Bulgarian. Then we will have another one dealing with specifically with education, where we'll have Roxana Minzatu, and then, and this is also important, we have to take into account that in the mission letter of Piotr Serafin, that is the Commissioner of Budget, we have the request to set up a competitiveness fund that will include several programs, and among them we could have also FP10, so the future research and innovation program of the Commission, and Erasmus+. So there is a level of uncertainty, because I mean we have conflicting information from different sources, but this is a present situation in Brussels. I stop here.
Thank you very much, Piero. So here we are in the context of the Europa General Assembly, and yesterday we had representatives from Guild, from EWA, and together with Guild, for instance, Bologna is collaborating with ARUA, so there's plenty of networks and different alliances working together. So what's your view on the possible trade-offs between, again, integration and competition, intra and inter networks and alliances?
Thank you very much, Raffaella and Piero. It's heartwarming to see the efforts that are still ongoing in Brussels. I would say that universities are first and foremost set up to produce knowledge and to do research. And it's important to know that knowledge is not restrictive. And for me to be a successful university, it calls for collaboration. It calls for collaboration, intra-university collaboration, inter-university collaboration. And recently we've seen the rise of alliances. One of the many other hats I wear is the Vice Chair of the African Research Universities Alliance. And so I've been intimately involved in Alliance, University Alliance. And I have seen the benefits of such alliances. It's extremely, I find them to be extremely important. You did mention the Guild. ARUA is of African universities, and we are collaborating with the Guild. And it's more like buy one, get 100 free, you would have to invest a lot of resources to engage all of these universities if you're looking at, strictly bilateral relations. But the alliances just provide that platform for extensive collaboration, in-depth and breadth-wise, to work across areas of common interest. Now, what needs to be done is for each alliance member to come into this with a clear idea of their comparative advantage and their strength, their institutional identity, seeking for these to be sharpened. I don't believe that this is a case of the more you give, the more you diminish, but a case of the more you give, the brighter that you become. We talked earlier on about the limitation in resources. Resources are limited, so it's important that we share resources. It's important that we tap into these resources collectively. The kind of access to funding that you usually would get as an alliance, you don't get access to it as an individual, university and as an individual entity. So I think that if there are any trade-offs, they are really minimal, and that the benefits, far outweigh the disadvantages of being in alliances. Of course, it means that you also need to be culturally sensitive, get to learn more about others, not just yourself. And it's important also, one of the things that we've been talking about these days is the issue of equitable partnerships. And I do use the Arua Guild model as a good example of how to do these things. I remember that the guild did not come to Arua and say, oh, this and this is what we want to do, come along with us, or this is where you can fit in, right? But we started right from the scratch as what are the things that are of concern for us as universities, researchers on the African continent, and what are the things that are of concern to you as researchers in the European context. Invariably, you would see that there are a lot of shared interest. Most of our challenges are global, even though they are contextualized in the various regions. And so together we identified areas of common interest, and we built clusters of research excellence. I think now we have about 21 of these clusters of research excellence with, for each cluster there is a Guild University and an Arua University co-leading. And then that also allowed the opportunity to even bring along other universities who are not necessarily part of the alliance. Because, we don't, and I don't believe in being that one shining star in the sky when it comes to research, when it comes to universities. You need that critical mass. So it's important that we think more collaboratively, rather than competitively in this era. And I did talk about equitable research, giving the example of Arua and the Guild. But I also like to draw our attention that there is the African Charter on Equitable Research Collaboration, which has been led by Isabella Abudurin from University of Bristol and other colleagues, touching on issues, such as epistemology, for us to understand that there isn't one single knowledge systems. There are knowledges. African indigenous knowledge, for instance, is legitimate. It's a legitimate knowledge system which we bring to the table in collaborations and alliances such as these. Issues of language, framing, and really joint development of proposals. So there's so much that we stand to gain here when we do it correctly, when you do it rightly, when you do it equitably, when you do it with trust and mutual respect for all the partners involved in there.
Thank you so much, I would say, for this so inspirational reply you provided. Thank you. Okay, Piero, so with Nana we've been considering especially interinstitutional academic relations. Would you like to share us some views with respect to the role and the impact of integration and or competition when we consider the relation, for instance, between public and private universities, and the relations between universities and private stakeholders, private companies, also from the perspective of institutional general commitment.
Yeah, well, let's say that this relation between universities and private sector is essential, but it's also complicated. Why? Because I mean, we can consider the technological readiness level, that is a scale, where we have at the beginning the work that is done in the lab, on field, and that concern the publication that scientists are doing. If we go the other side of the scale, we see that the scientific work has a deep impact on our society, where we can really create an added value for our citizens, our people. So having this full scale, we see that there is a big room for interactions, for a common work between university and the private sector. It's important to have the opportunity, the capacity to set up this link. It's also true that while in Europe we have some successful example, well, we have universities setting up startups and working closely together with the industry. This would become more difficult if we think about our international cooperation. So it will become more difficult if we have to work in Africa, if we have to work in Latin America. So these are also two conflicting issues. If we want to increase our international work, at the same time, we will have more difficulties to increase our work with the private sector that by definition is more competitive. There are a lot of IPR issues, and this make more difficult to work at international level. That say, we are planning also, there are ongoing discussions in the Commission concerning the opportunity to have many research activities integrated in what we call Global Gateway. Global Gateway, it's a package of activities basically mainly on cooperation infrastructures that should cover our neighbors in the east and in the south. And this is in some way our reply to the Chinese Belt and Road program. Something I also would like to mention is the relevance of open science. That is something that sometimes is not taken in the due account. We really need to make journals available to all the scientific community all over the world. And one issue is to have them available. Another issue is that the scientists should not pay for publishing, because this really can make the difference between scientists with a budget to do it and others that have not. Yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you very much. So Nana, we actually met last weekend in Tokyo at the IAU conference, and there was so much talking about sustainability there. So I was wondering whether from the standpoint of the African continent, you could tell us something more on social sustainability, environmental, financial sustainability, and how it is increasingly impacting academic policies from your perspective.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, sustainability is critical, and we're all talking about it these days. But I like the way you break it down into social sustainability, environmental sustainability, and financial sustainability. And I consider social sustainability to mean that part of sustainability that focuses on the well-being of individuals and communities, and largely placing emphasis on equity and social justice. And these, I mean, from where I'm coming from, these issues, you know, drive the things that we do. I mean, for instance, in my university, for our new strategic plan, we have 5 strategic priorities. One of it is transformative student experience. So we care about the experience that our students have when they come to us. Another one is commitment to faculty and staff, right? And one is also engagement and partnerships. So in all of these, you see the social aspects running through. The fact that we should engage more with our communities, the communities that we find ourselves in, we should not be remotely displaced from them, but we should engage them, you know, consider that they have significant inputs even to make in the work that we do, the research that we do, right? And so social sustainability is critical for me. That fosters collaborations among universities. And if we are going to succeed in alliances, we should bear social sustainability and the well-being of the members of the alliance in mind. Well, environmental sustainability, I think that one has caught on very well, which is the emphasis on responsible management of the natural resources and the non-destruction of the ecology. Almost every university that I know, you know, has or is practicing some policy or practices on environmental sustainability. So I think for that, institutions are really doing quite well in that regard. Financial sustainability, well, the money drives basically everything that we do, so it's important that we have financial sustainability. And if I bring it back to our context, for me, that's another reason why we need to do everything possible to sustain these alliances so that we can effectively share the resources that are available for us. I think that we stand a better chance when we come together and we target accessing certain resources rather than 10, 15 of us all, you know, going chasing that same resource. Of course, within our universities, we need to ensure that we have policies that are student-friendly, that would continue to help us keep our enrollments, especially, you know, in the context, the wave that we are having across Europe and across the world, which, you know, naturally would drive diversity away, international students, minorities. And so it is important that universities are acutely aware of these and put in policies and practices that even in the midst of these challenging times, we will keep our head above water. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we started this session by remarking the different crises around the world, the different reasons why we should be concerned and maybe slightly worried. But I think that also through your words, through Nana's and Piero's word, we also have some hope that things can get better and that the universities can actually play a very relevant role. So maybe the sort of, you know, old-fashioned rhetoric of being open to the whole world is being questioned around, but we also feel that university is still pretty much on that floor, so we really think that to be opened is the solution. So, Piero, would you like to remark something about science diplomacy? So, science and in, for, on diplomacy. What role can we play?
Well, in this geopolitical situation, I would say that science diplomacy can play an important role. Well, first of all, when we talk about science diplomacy, we mean direct or indirect use of science, scientific knowledge, and scientific cooperation to advance diplomatic goals. And well, this always has been existing, but in many different strands. For example, we have diplomacy for science, that is the use of diplomatic actions to facilitate scientific collaboration. So, for example, the work that the European Commission is doing associating different neighboring countries to our RNI program. This is to get them more involved from a scientific point of view with a diplomatic action. Then we have science for diplomacy, the use of science as a soft power to build trust and maintain links with countries. For example, we had in the past a very successful example in Jordan, Sesame, that was a synchrotron where they were working together, Israelis and Arabs scientists. And that was really a successful example. Another one is to give the possibility to the Russian scientists that working in CERN in Switzerland to keep on working there at an individual level. This is a way to keep always open a door with countries with whom we have political issues. And then we have science in diplomacy, so the direct support of diplomatic process through science. And in this case, we have to think, for example, the scientific advices that are provided to the political world. And we have to remember, for example, the work that the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is doing, providing inputs to the political world. Well, you're right. I mean, we passed from a situation where we are totally open to the world. I remember the lemma of Moedas Commission a few years ago. So, well, now we realize it. We have been naive because we left our doors fully open. Personally, I remember I was a young scientist. I was involved in a project on miscanthus. Well, it happened that obviously a company producing genetic material was involved in the project. Well, the moment the project was over, this company was bought by Americans and moved to America with all the know-how of European project. So, well, just to make you an example, and from the other side, we have several examples of Chinese companies with headquarters in Europe that are involved in European projects, and we know that all the data are going to Beijing or Shanghai. So this is a wake-up call. We need to be smarter, to don't be so naive, and to take care about our knowledge, our sovereignty. So this is something that we have to take into account. As another issue are the foreign interferences in our universities. This is a debate you are fully aware, better than anybody else, about the participation of scientists from other part of the globe in our research, in our universities, and they are providing our data to other countries. But well, at the same time, as we said before, I mean, science diplomacy is an essential tool to get in touch with these countries, to keep a link, to keep a conversation. So we really have to keep on working on this.
Thank you very much, and our speakers have been great in sticking into time, so we got something like 15 minutes for questions from the audience, so whoever is willing to comment, suggest, ask questions, you're more than welcome to do so. Anyone from the audience? Somebody up there? There's an there. Oh, here.
Thank you very much for thought-provoking and informative discussion. One question about how you find this relationship between diplomacy and academia. So if you find solutions, diplomacy and academia. So if you find solutions that allow, say, Russians to serve in CERN, does that have knock-on effects for how you might carry out alliances with Ukraine? And so how are we in universities expected to try and second guess these kinds of political situations? Or how should we respond to these international crises as academics?
Thank you for your question. May I also ask people from the audience to introduce themselves briefly when they raise the question, so that we get to know each other as well.
Sorry. Sarah Green, University of Helsinki, Anthropology.
Thank you so much. Piero.
Well, links between policy and academia. Well, that's well, I would say that the academia is fully involved in the discussion in Brussels. We have, well, part of the dynamic in Brussels is to have lobby groups. And I have to say that academia, through different alliances, is doing an excellent job. So, well, obviously, there is an impact. Academia must be taken into account. And, well, let's say that the political situation nowadays is so volatile that it's difficult to have long-term strategy. We need to have a high level of flexibility. When we talk about Ukraine, for example, you know that we set up a call for special grant for Ukrainian scientists to come to work to Europe. I mean, this was our first reaction. Then well, it's difficult to find other options, other solutions, because we really don't know what is going to happen. But it's clear that we will need to offer to Ukraine, as other countries that are in this area that are already associated to our program, opportunities. So obviously now Ukraine is a country in a war. So it's difficult to talk about science. I mean, it's not helpful also for them, you know. I mean, you can have some scientists coming to work for us and they are super welcome. But it's difficult now to plan about infrastructures, about what can be done at a scientific level with them. But, well, we have the moment, unfortunately for them, this is not a priority, but for sure in the future there will be many, many actions on this. I hope I reply your question. It was not an easy one.
Yeah, I just want to add that it's usually a tough situation, but my recommendation is that as much as possible, individual academics should not be constrained, but we should also not be oblivious of the politics, the international politics, and so on. And so it's tough for you as an individual researcher, you know, to deal with these things. And that's why, you know, they are the alliances, they are the university leaders. Brussels is there doing the work that it does at this, in the case of Africa, and so on. But one of the things that we need to bear in mind in collaborations is that we should no longer take things for granted. And it's important that we document everything that we do and even plan to do. And it is clear from the beginning what the rules are how the intellectual property issues are going to be handled, even data issues, who gets to keep the data, who gets access to the data, over which period, and so on and so forth. So we should not take things for granted, but we should also not feel constrained as academics. Otherwise, we don't get the best that we are looking for. Thank you.
Anyone else from the audience? Nope. Okay. Over there.
Hello, my name is Elon Wright. I'm the one of the student board co-chairs. I'm from University College Dublin. I'm really interested, so I'm from the US originally, so I'm very familiar with like rising far-right nationalism and racism, and it's been a growing problem in Dublin for the past several years as well. We had the 2023 Dublin riots, and it's like the rise of racist and far-right actions in the city has been very active. And I think it's something that we should be continuously talking about. And I guess I'm curious about what your opinion is on how European universities and education structures can actively help combat these kind of nationalistic and far-right ideals that have been growing very strongly, and kind of if you have any opinions on kind of the role of social media and how education in social media can interact with that.
I guess that's for me. Just like the earlier question, these are tough situations, and there is no straightforward answers. But what I would like to say is that these issues that you did mention, they invariably go against the values of universities across the world. I mean, you can go on various university websites and look at the values of different universities, and there'll be a theme running through, issues of inclusion, diversity, non-discrimination, integrity, and respect, and so on. And so institutions will have to constantly remind themselves through everything that they do in the classrooms, in the speeches that the leaders give, through various student clubs and so on. We need to remind ourselves of the values of universities universally, and also as individual institutions. And beyond that, ensure that there are policies in place which are guiding the practices that we undergo, to make sure that everyone feels safe. We provide an environment for talent to grow, irrespective of where it's coming from. And then also we need to, at the level of the leadership, also to do all that is within our power to resist influences from outside, from the national level. I'm a university leader, and I know that it is not easy, but that's what we signed up for, and at this point we can't afford to betray our institutions. And again, it is important in such times for various networks, in my context, we have vice chancellors, Ghana. So networks, are always useful, especially in tough times, and we just need to keep at it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a last question from the audience? Okay. So if not, I might raise the last one, since we still got 3 minutes, and I'm so glad to be here with Nana and Piero. So a question, then 1 minute answer from each of you. So do you think that this theoretical tension between integration and competition is going to produce or not some polarization of research and education in some areas or institution versus other, or not? So Nana first, and then we let Piero, and 1 minute to reply.
Did you say polarization? Well, it's up to us. It's up to us. We need to, I mean, having enumerated all the benefits that, and we have experienced it, 5 years, we have experienced it already. And so it's up to us to ensure that we overcome the challenges and we make this work for us, for the enhancement of our institutions, and for the good of higher education and knowledge production generally. So like everything else, there are challenges, but we should be determined to overcome the challenges and make this work for us. There's a lot more for us to gain this way than otherwise. So in Europa, I'm looking forward to the 10th anniversary, the 15th anniversary, the 25th anniversary, and so on and so forth. A bigger, stronger alliance. Thank you.
Well, I fully share Nana's positive message. I think, working together in a constructive spirit is better than create specific areas of competition. I mean, we really have to, for the success of the universities, for the success of the educational system, we have to work together. And let's say that in the world nowadays there are so many conflictive situations that it's important that we are a compact block in front of the others outside, and in this way we can really be successful.
So let me thank once again our great speakers and the audience for being with us, and let me conclude. Given that we are celebrating here collaborations and integration and interactions between universities in Europe and worldwide, I would like to end quoting Nana's sentence, so the more you give, the brighter you become. And let this be our joint wish. Thank you a lot.
So now we are going on.